Welcome to episode 20 of Raiders of the Lost Art. My name is Finbar and this is Symphonic Planet, the art of storytelling, people, culture, and the planet through music. Do you believe it? We're actually at episode 20 already. And in those 20 episodes, we've covered a whole heap of really, really interesting topics through entrepreneurship, art, business, creativity in building, active listening, composing, a whole ton of stuff. But this episode in particular is going to be amazing. Today, we're going to be talking with one of the founders of Symphonic, Noel, and he's going to be taking us on a journey about why they exist, what is Symphonic Planet, their show, their software, a whole bunch of stuff. But it's a topic that's true to my heart. It's about the connection between emotion, culture, storytelling, and sound. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Music is communicating.
In many ways, it's like sharing a meal with someone.
You don't need to understand the language in order to understand each other.
When you listen to music from different parts of the world, you can try to understand, why does it make people move? Why does it make people happy?
This is really the life I want to live. Traveling the world, meeting interesting people, finding sound, learning other instruments, learning other languages, learning about other cultures, and then come back and make something out of it.
I am Noel.
I am Jonas Peterson.
And this is Symphonic Planet.
So welcome, Noel. Welcome to Raiders of the Lost Art. It's amazing having you on. I'm so thrilled to be chatting with you and exploring the whole Symphonic Planet journey and your journey as well.
Thanks for having me. This is super awesome, especially with you. You know, I mean, it's such a pleasure to get to know you and to hang out with you here today.
Yeah, well, likewise, man. It's it's interesting. You know, part of when I started this was. I had no idea where it was going to go, but it's this connection to build all these connections around the world with like people with like minds who are pushing new sonic journeys and just exploring new things and trying to extract narratives from all different places. And blew me away when I first got connected with you through a good mate, and just hearing what you're doing and seeing what you're doing. It blows me away. So, you know, like, let's start with that. Like Symphonic Planet. For everyone else out there, what is it?
Well, there's a lot of explanations for Symphonic Planet, but I think the easiest way for me to tell it is that we are... I have so much to say. We're an initiative that is aimed at inspiring others to push the boundaries of their comfort zones. And that is the overall theme for everything that we do. Now, what are we, specifically, is a media company, and we are artists that travel around the world telling stories and discovering new hidden narratives within music cultures and the environment around us. And we like to express the things that we find and our experiences, that, you know, our authentic experiences with traveling the world and discovering and connecting with people through creativity and through innovation and through art and music, and most importantly, storytelling. A biggest part, one of the biggest goals that we have is we want to bring the world closer to people, and we want to bring people closer to each other from around the world. And there's just so many beautiful things that come out of that answers a lot of questions or starts asking questions. So basically, I mean, we are an artist on an adventure to discover what life means through the lens of music and culture.
Well, it blows me away because, you know, everyone knows that and heard 1,000 times that music's this universal language, and, you know, there's all these different facets to it. But what I love about, you know, when I first started seeing what you're doing from your shows, your video content, and also what you're doing with your software, is that you're really just going and exploring a deeper connection and pulling these stories out, which, you know, to me, it's partly the whole reason why this show exists, is that intersection between art, innovation, creativity, business, and that understanding the connective tissue between these things. And, you know, you seem to be teasing that out. And then also but not only that, you seem to be putting it into tools that allow artists to go and create the things that you've teased out. So it's more than just to me and this media property. You've got, through your vision, you seem to be not only pulling the stories out, you're then delivering them in a way where people can put them together and create their own sort of things. So I don't know if that resonates with you, but that's the
Exactly.
way it seems to me.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, yes, yes. You're hitting it on the dime for sure. I mean, there's it's all about, again, like about inspiring others. So it is not just enough for us to experience these adventures, excuse me, and explore these countries and these cultures by ourselves. That experience needs to inspire others to go off and do their own experience. If it's not traveling or whether if it's creating, we try to bring the sounds to you from wherever our feet touch the ground. And so and it's really important that it's like a souvenir in a way, but it's more like a gift, and it's a permission that we have, a privilege that we have from these people and the environment to give more access to creators that want to create things. And with that, we like to throw in these little Easter eggs, these nuggets, and that you can gold mine in the software that you can get. And it's information about the instrument that you're playing, so you can almost visualize yourself there and take that next step in your creation tools. And that is just one part of the pie, essentially, of what we do. In many ways, that is the gift that we give,
But
that we share
so for the
through
uninitiated,
playing.
you have a show, right? Symphonic Planet. That
Mhm,
you
mhm.
is it released yet, or are you just still in production? Where is that at?
So we have two shows, and we have older content. So we have two shows right now in production. One of them is a travel log, I like to call it. It's basically a behind the scenes YouTube show about two best friends and slash business partners traveling the world to try to shoot another show they're going to pitch to a network, and all the things that could just probably go wrong or good. But you get a kind of doing it backwards, where you see the behind the scenes production first before you see the show. Now the other show is that show is called Out of Tune. um, and then there's 4 episodes right now available on YouTube. It's a journey, and a lot of we have to exercise a lot of vulnerability, because um, there's some embarrassing moments in there. But it's our journey to figuring out how to have a successful show, how to successfully tell a story, to figuring out who we are and how do we work together. And it's not just me. It's also I have a business partner and co-founder. His name is Jonas Peterson, and he and I created this vision together in 2016, and we've been at this ever since. And then the other show is a working title, but right now, Symphonic Planet is kind of where I'll say my golden pony. I would say I really love this one. Uh, the other show is about two musicians traveling the world to answers life's big question: what does it mean to live? And through that, we explore the human condition and human emotions through uh, through different cultures, and we kind of target a different culture, and it's, preferably a culture that we know nothing about, that we are travelers and we are humbled by this experience, trying to understand, what does it mean to love, through the narrative and through the life of someone that is lives in ancient Mayan land, and their culture. Or what does it mean to experience anger and in a place where your country is going through massive revolutionary changes. And but there's so much wealth of culture and vibrance in that. Everywhere we go, even in the most mundane looking of places, there's a story there. And that show is really centered um, on catering to an audience that is, I've asked myself this question for a long time when someone tells me music is a universal language. Okay, but how? And as a musician, we kind of, through the process of becoming a musician and building our craft, we innately kind of answer those questions internally. And when we say that to each other, we understand each other. It's kind of like it's very difficult to pinpoint what the definition of love is because it's a lot of perspective, right? You know, the way you love someone may be different from the next person that you love, and you may not love them the same way and in different capacities.
Yes.
So, what does it mean to speak the same language when it comes to music? It's a very esoteric subject, and you know that I feel, and I think the closest thing for those who may not, you know, follow a path of being a performing musician or a studio musician or composer is that we understand emotions and we understand how to connect to each other. I mean, when we are in a country where we don't speak their language, we rely on body language. We rely on communicating and exercising other parts of communicating with one each other in order to you know um, to compensate for the lack of verbal vocabulary. So and which is really pretty amazing because music is that's what it means to be a language. You know, as we've been discovering this, is that everyone connects through feelings. Everyone knows what it feels to be happy, loved, sad, excited. You know, all these ranges of emotions is a language built in within itself. And I think in musicality is where that magic, you know, is birthed and it's hosted. You know, it lives freely in the context of, you know, in the music world. And so, I mean, in one way, you could see that the show is a lot of it is you learning about, and we're learning about how music is a language, in a way.
Well,
You know,
one thing,
I mean, a big,
one thing that
yeah.
really blew me away when I watched some of the stuff that I saw on YouTube was my journey. Is obviously I was a trained musician and very technical player and composer, and I sort of spent the last 10, 15 years of my life trying to throw all that knowledge away and trying to discover what's in sound frequencies and ancient harmonic tuning systems and why was it rationalized to a mathematical Pythagorean sort of formula where things play in tune, and just trying to go beyond deeper. And your content touch to me is that a lot of musicians think about music and the language of music as something they've been taught in terms of this is the notes and this is how you play together, and it's something. It's like it's a thing. Music is a thing that you go and learn. But when you go in, when I watched your shows, the music is not, they don't know about the thing of music. What they're doing is trying to transcribe stories through music. And the music is representing the sound of a peacock or someone doing something. It's a tribal dance, or it's a visualization that they've created a sound for, rather than, okay, this is a Aeolian scale going to a Lydian dominant. They're not thinking about, you know, where first chair violin goes with. None of that exists. It's the translation of the stories. And for me, there's something so inherently beautiful about the connection between human emotion and sound and music, as opposed to music as a thing you go and learn, as something that we've developed a structure around. Look, that's what really blew me away about what you're doing. It's that when you're trying to connect these emotions to these stories, I think you're doing a phenomenal job. And it's just, I just think that
Thank
I
you.
think there's so much in sound that we just haven't explored, and by teasing this out, brings a light to something which is way more valuable than, well, to me, it's way more valuable than just going and studying and being a really great composer or something. To me, that's not enough. To me, anyway.
You know, I'm glad that you mentioned that, and you're saying some really amazing things that is enlightening for me. You know, and a little bit new as well. So thank you. I You're so right, and you know, I think it's so totally okay. You know, and I think it's wonderful that we have this kindred, you know, connection, because there is sometimes you reach a level in a craft where, like, you know, where do I go from here? And and we all experience that in many ways in life. You know, okay, I have all the quintessential things in society that expects of me. I've reached a peak in my career, but where do I go from here? What does, you know, I mean, what value does my life have at this point? and am I truly happy with this? Is there anything else to learn? And I think we've a lot of times we've overshadowed the details and the stories that don't get told, because the ones that get told are promoted, on a platform that, that kind of does cast a big shadow on the stories that have been existing for thousands of years. And, it's really neat that we, there's so much more. There is so much more to life, and there's so much more to anything that you care about if you choose to walk around this beautiful art that is our planet. This rock that we live on has so many different angles and perspective. I know personally myself, this is where it all began, of me feeling really kind of stuck with life, not just music, but hitting rock bottom, not seeing a way out, and not sure if there's anything more to life. And I've always been an adventurous person. I've always had, big aspirations. But um, when you start putting yourself in a situation where you have to see things from a different perspective, and you start seeing that there's a lot more to music that we don't understand, and very sophisticated levels of excellence and knowledge in music and spirituality. You can throw that in, the mix. It's like it's an amazing dish of food. There's just all these flavors that you never thought that this one ingredient has multiple different ways, and it means it means, in so many different ways to whoever you show it to or you give to a cook, and it's what, it's a thing that's interesting that shows wise, there's so many travel shows and not very many music shows in this aspect, and that's why we want to fulfill this. But I mean, the wonderful, beautiful thing about through food is this essence of the fact that we need it, we love it, we eat it, and everybody has a different take on how to cook an onion, or how to bake a bread, or how to serve wine, and we all love different flavors, and music is the same way. If you explore the wonderful things that music has to offer to feed your ears, your brain. I mean, your food feeds your brain, sure, but so does music. And we're talking about about frequencies, right? Frequencies, or these frequencies, modalities, all these things are food for our brain as well. For
100%.
us to understand, to have this holistic experience. And if you want to go in the science route and you want to analyze this, there is so much there for you to explore, because it tells a story. It tells the story about humanity. Music tells a story about our humanity. And it's really important that we remember what that is all about, because we get so lost in this commercial world where people do connect with it. I mean, pop songs are very powerful. For a long time, I hated pop music. I was very strictly jazz, and I lived in a world that I could relate to to a lot of my classical colleagues too, where, you look at another style of music and you have a prejudice against it and this culture about it. And like, oh, you're too square, or you're too, free, or you too, and it doesn't matter. At some point, once you realize, oh, you too are very narrow-minded, because all your music is born from the rest of the world. And,
what I find fascinating about that is, to me, is that food is something that stimulates senses, which is a sense of taste. And sound, it does more than just ears. Sound, it stimulates, the auditory. So but they stimulate the brain in different ways. So it's a sensory-based information. And so if you look at it through that lens, food being a sensory-based thing, if you ate the same food, and if everyone made McDonald's, not that there's anything wrong with McDonald's, but in the race for everyone making McDonald's or a fast food thing to support a specific dietary requirement or a taste, that's great, but it gets boring after a while. And so when music, and everyone's racing to create something that's on the radio that's got the same formula, you end up with everything that's got the same sensory information, which again is nothing wrong with that. But for me, if you just like jazz, it's like you just might like steak, or you might like. But as we sort of evolve our tastes and watch these shows, I think it's what you're saying is perfectly reasonable. And I call it active listening, being able to not talk and actually listen and listen deep into the music, and to create music that actually allows for that sort of depth or actually takes people on a different type of journey, for me is really, really inspiring. And I just want to touch on, you've got your shows and you've got this amazing, all your journeys, but you're not only just being satisfied with that, you're creating software instruments, which allow people to put this together. Now, I just had a play with them, and it's just amazing. So not only are you creating the software instruments, you're putting the narratives and the stories in the software instruments. So you can actually go and look at a map and take the satellite point to the desert where you recorded the sounds. Can you just talk about the tools that you're creating for artists to go and take those stories and then recreate their own?
I have to give a lot of credit to my business partner Jonas. That was his idea. I mean, I do a lot most of the filming, and I love flying drones, and um, you know, pairing visual art and geography with music is pretty amazing. Yes, it's exactly. I mean, and he figured out how to add that feature or to create that feature in our plugins, and it's probably my favorite one, just because you yourself as the composer, you yourself as the producer, the creator, can travel with us, and we're going to keep expanding on that. Eventually, maybe some virtual reality experience to your creative process might be a next step. And the thing is that everything's about innovation. Everything's about everything's about growth and finding new ways to tell stories and to inspire people to do. And because we want to see what people create, we want other people to inspire other people. This is not something we keep to ourselves. It's building a community of people that can tell each other stories and share and bounce that off. But yeah, I mean, the software, and it all began because I needed, when we first recorded the Singing Sand Dunes, I wanted to compose music based off of a true experience of going to that destination. And if I can't literally put a range of sand dunes in my backpack in my car.
Well, if you could, you'd probably be very rich.
I mean, I would need a lot of money to do that.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
But I just need to go to Burning Man, and I come back with half of the dust anyway.
That's right.
There's
and a loincloth
there,
and
no
a
matter
spear.
what. And a loincloth and a spear,
and some laser lights,
yes, and pickles.
That's right. Yes.
For some reason, there's an apocalyptic supply of pickles
and
everywhere
bottle caps as money. Yeah,
but bottle caps. Yes, of course. And comfort and affirmation for when you're out of caps. It's true. It's a gifting society, right?
Yeah.
I love the gifting economy, and there's so many great things there. It's one of my favorite places in life. But yes, it's it's all about that, and I needed to get these sounds playable so that I could compose music based, to express my experience, to evoke my feelings, so that I can tell somebody, this is how my feeling, going to these places were like. This is my adventure. This is a story about my journey, through Sonic, a Sonic organization, and but that wasn't good enough. It was just not good enough just to have some GUI, some GUI, and mapped out in native instruments and compose with that and the sounds. It needed to be visually, graphically put together, and it needed to be, if I'm going to share a story, visuals and music, I need to share the tools that I use as well to tell those stories. And I want people to go there and learn how to respect, these sounds, because it's not just, these are sounds, and these are environments and places that are, nearing the end of their journey of their life. And whether if you believe in environmental change and not, the proof is right there. What we do know is that everything around us changes, and it could be we as a species could be responsible for that or not, or it's just what the earth goes through. Whatever you believe in, you can't deny the fact that the world around us is changing, and our people are changing, and we are losing. It is, in a very, anthropological view, it's kind of almost the way of life in a way that change is inevitable.
Well,
But it is definitely important to remember, to treasure, and to preserve the beautiful things that we do have, and appreciate those things, and learn to respect that, so that we know how to recognize these things in the future.
I think
And the singing sand dunes.
I think you've done a great job, because I have got so many plugins. Like I don't know, I've probably spent $10,000-$12,000 on. I've got like everything of everything. I just buy everything basically. So when it was like, oh look, I'll get another plugin for Contact, I was like, oh okay, it's another. Let's go and load up the presets. But the connection between the story and the map and the thing, it changed. It's not just a preset, and it's not just a set of samples, and I can load up whatever. I can go and load up incredible strings or other. I've got great world instruments, but I load them up and they feel like a preset to me. But when I load yours in with the story and stuff, it invokes me to create, because I look at the picture, I look at the map, I read the story, and that actually helps me get into a space where for creation, which is so interesting to me, because I've never had that before. I've just had preset, load it up. Okay, here's your map. Here's the keyboard map. Here's where the samples are. Here's where your key triggers are, blah, 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 blah. And for those that know what Contact is and stuff, they know what I'm talking about. For those that don't, it's basically the other way that all these samples and sounds that have been captured, they don't have any context around how they were captured and where they were captured. And so, which is fine, allows you to go and do it, but it as being able to have that context around it does at least help me visualize, at least for me, a way to create sound. So I think you've done a really great service of being able to sort of infuse your brand into the tools that you give artists to create with. So congrats on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. We're storytellers, and one thing I learned pretty recently, actually, I've always known this inherently, but I wasn't able to vocalize it. Everything we choose to do in life is always on the basis of some kind of story. We are driven by stories. Our species is driven by stories, and we've told stories since we were able to speak, so to speak. But and we love, as a society, we love watching movies. We love sitting around a campfire, telling narratives or fantasies or all these things, or hearing somebody finding happiness or success and wealth, abundance and an achievement or gratification, finding purpose, and it's all driven by a story. We learn everything that we do in life. We learn through that way. Someone who wants to be a doctor, and not always the case, but in most cases, it's because they want to help people. They want to save a life because they saw, the value of that because it happened to somebody else, and they were like, I want to be that. Let me ask you, what initially when you picked up your first instrument and you continued to, through your life to continue, why did you choose to continue playing music?
Well, for me, it's a puzzle of the unknown. And I say to people, I've never liked sport. I've never been into, and for a long time, I never fit in. And I was like, well, how come I don't even like playing pool against anyone. I never understood it, but I love sitting in my room with my guitar for 8 hours, solving the never-ending sort of myriad of combinations and listening to the sounds I can create and then working that out. And for me, as I got later, I love to compete with myself, not to compete against anyone else. And so, and it was this, for me, life is this journey of curiosity.
What inspired you? Right. What inspired you to pick up the instrument in the first place?
Well, it's a great story, because my brother went on a trip for school, and I was always in trouble at school. I went to a Christian school, and I used to ask questions because I'm generally curious. And because it was a Christian school, I was asking questions about the Bible. I used to get the strap all the time because I was seen as insolent. So they didn't know what to do with me. So I just saw this guitar one day. I was about 9, and I said to my dad, I want that. So they just went, buy it for my son. My dad told me, play it till your fingers bleed. And I actually did till my fingers bled. And I went up to my dad and said, look, my fingers are bleeding. And he was like, but for me, it was something that I, I didn't understand, but I could ask questions of it and it wouldn't chastise me for asking questions of it. So it's,
See, that's a great story, and it's fantastic because it's a different kind of narrative, a different story. It's a true story, right? A lot of people are inspired by, oh, I saw this person, I want to be like them. In your case, I don't know, I love that. It's a different angle, and just for the reason you told me the story, it inspired me to want to do something about it, or to get to know you and create an act. And the drives this whole point that we're also driven by stories, and to do these things that build us who we are. And simply, in a very poetic sense, it's baked in and crafted into everything that we do. Like you said, our brand is in everything that we do, and that's what that's all about. As a creator, it's about you, it's not about us. And we for a while we thought about, okay, I thought I was going to create a whole presets, make life easier for everybody, but I realized that this instrument is not, the integrity of these instruments are not to be presets and preloaded. I don't want people who touch our instrument to miss out on the journey of learning about where your home, like, this is our home.
yeah.
This is how you learn it. You have to pick it up. This is not going to McDonald's and ordering from a menu. We have a tool, we have an instrument, we do the best that we can to capture its essence, and we give it to you to discover what sounds can you create from nature or from these people.
Well, you certainly did that, mate.
And the next,
you certainly did that.
good,
But
thank you.
there's something I really want to touch on here, which I think is super, super relevant to everyone watching the show right now. And it is, and forgive me if I got this wrong, because I heard this from a good friend, Eliza. And she likes to, she's a great storyteller in her own right. But, Navy SEAL, Kung Fu, Jiu-Jitsu master, whatever, you had this incredible background. And then you've got to this point where, tell me if I'm telling you this wrong, where you hit rock bottom and you then met your partner, and out of that rock bottom came this amazing visualization, this journey that you're on now. And I think, look, there's a lot of people struggling at the moment. And, I think, I've hit rock bottom. A lot of people have hit rock bottom, and rock bottom is the place where they actually go and discover who they are. And I just think that, there's a great story. If you could just sort of share with that how you met Jonas, and you're doing all this amazing stuff now, but where were you, and what was that catalyst to take you from military into what you're doing now, for example?
Sure. So I was a United States Marine. I wasn't that hardcore to become a Navy SEAL, but that would be great. But I still, when I made the choice to join the military, I was going to do what was the hardest thing, and try to excel at that. I've always been attracted to extreme environments, and I was a musician in the military, and I was also, as a Marine, you have to also be combat ready. So one of my trainings, I kind of was specialized in machine gun weaponry. But then, that's a whole story in its own. Yes, I for many years of my life, I had a title once in martial arts, in Kung Fu. I spent many years in that, and just like music, I went all over different styles of martial arts, and it took me through an incredible, multicultural journey through martial arts. And then, and I grew up in a musical family, and I'm a first generation, American citizen, and my entire family's from different parts of the world, and very, very unlikely pairings to Malaysian, Venezuelan, Polish, but I was always exposed to a different perspective of the world, and it was very beautiful, and some moments tragic, but mostly beautiful. I had a very, very good life, growing up. And then after I finished my contract, with the Marine Corps, and I moved to Los Angeles, that I experienced several rock bottoms. I think almost it's a badge of courage, or that you get when you hit rock bottom in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles is a place
um,
that can
you
definitely
know,
amplify getting rock bottom, that's for sure.
Definitely, and it can really it can beat you down to the ground, to your knees, if you let it. And for those who have an ounce of hope and determination, you can find a solution to everything. And I found that while the city is many things that people love to give it a bad name for, it is simply just a city filled with many different kinds of people and opportunities and stories. It's just a higher concentration of them, and I was one of them. And I was a burned out musician. I was touring a lot, um, and I was working myself to the bone, gigging, performing, and not really getting very far. And there was a part of me that didn't allow me to actually like go all the way. I mean, I did all these major label auditions, and I would make it to the final rounds, and I was just like, but then, and I even turned down a couple gigs with major labels, and because I was so concerned about, a part of me was always concerned about my happiness and me having some freedom. Um, and I mean, and I wasn't sure if that was case too, because I didn't know completely what that world was like in Hollywood. I knew nothing about it. I grew up around music, but I understood the corporate scene. I understood weddings. I understood that, but I didn't understand creative. That there was a creative outlet to make a living through it, or to survive through, or to make it through, and that you can put things out. I thought that was for the gods, and I'm merely just a plebeian in this world so vast. But I hit that rock bottom, and I was sleeping on my friend's couch, and he had this roommate, and this guy from Austria slash Germany, who's a mixing engineer, and he had come all the way here in the hopes of picking up his dream gig, which was working for Hans Zimmer. And because he worked with Hans Zimmer on Sherlock Holmes and Madagascar 3, I think, back in Austria, and they had a very positive experience. And and Hans, he was really liked him, and said, hey, if you're ever in LA, maybe we can get you a job there at my remote control or Bleeding Fingers. And it was like, that was his dream. So he focused his life, razor focused on focusing on being able to get that visa to America, raising the money, and coming here, moving here. And he came here, and the classic Hollywood story, got rejected. But I mean, but the thing is, he made it to a point where he he got the call. He didn't have to go for he didn't try to get the job. They came to him for the interview, and then eventually his story evolves after, and it's a very fascinating story, Jonas. But he was in his low point, where he had gone through all the big rejections that Hollywood could give you as an audio mixing engineer, and he was a master engineer, did great awards and everything, but even then it could be difficult. And then here I was, subletting my apartment out to make ends meet, and I'm crashing on someone else's couch, and I met Jonas, and at first our story's really cute. Jonas when I met him, was a massive introvert and not much of a people person. But at the time, Jonas was reading a book on how to make friends, and so he tried some of the exercises out of the book. It was that book, How to Win People, Influence Others.
Win friends and influence
from
others.
Dale Carnegie.
Yep.
For some people. So he was reading that, and he was like, well, there's this random guy here sleeping on this crappy couch. Let me try to see if I can make him a friend. And it's really funny. It's like, the few things it says, don't talk, listen, ask questions, pretend that you're interested in them. And and I thought it was genuine. I had no idea until sometime later in the future that's
so
how
your
it
relationship started with deception on one side of it.
Yes, and it ended up being, his family.
From deception to inception.
So I feel like I need to read the book. In many ways, they're like, there's those who live it and those who read it, and hey, so I would, yeah, I was a great a great class experiment, and we became best friends, and we had a very similar love for, for music, and he was all about film music, and in his past is very much in, very successful heavy metal producer, and but he also played violin, but he had been kind of shunned his whole life, and people telling him that he would never be a professional violinist, and so he
What?
dealt
They
in
thought
his
he'd
a
be a
lot of this.
professional heavy metal person. Heavy metal isn't like a great career path.
He you know he has a very fascinating story where he grew up in a very like sheltered world, but very healthy, sheltered world. But listening to the radio was like a no thing for him, and so he was rebellious at some point and found that love. But he always loved film music and cinematic things and things that evoke very strong emotions. And he played violin, and then his teachers tell him, "No, you're not going to make it. You should probably not play." And at some point he flipped it around here in Hollywood, and he became the top one of the top providers online in the world for orchestral string recording that he does all by himself anywhere he wants in the world. So it's a very great story sometimes to
Yeah.
explore Jonas Peterson, 24 Violins. But when we met, I he and I were so fed up with just trying to survive and figure out our meaning of life. Thinking, do I need to go work at, a Walmart? Like, what do I do? and and I had this book called 501 Must-Take Journeys, and I bought this when I was in the military in Virginia, and it was a bucket of a fantastic, luckily, no longer in production, but fantastic book outlining the most fascinating journeys and itineraries that are not very like known. These are not very touristy things. These are things that really take you through, a different narrative through a country. And I wanted to go through all of those before I die. And I was showing Jonas' book, and we were hanging out, drinking some boba. And next thing you know, we were just asking, man, I wish I could go there. This is anything. I mean, this would be so much better than being stuck here right now, trying to do what everybody else is doing, following these trends of everybody else. They say that if you want to be in the 1%, you got to stop following the social norms of the other 99. Yeah. But we wanted to travel the world, and literally, I mean, it started a little bit selfish. We just wanted to go on vacation and leave Los Angeles, right. But we wanted to come back to LA, but we just wanted to get out and see the world and get inspired again, and just go on a great vacation, take a break, because we were both so exhausted, working so hard to a point in which that we just didn't get that affirmation, that receptive appreciation, yeah. And it was just like we were very unhappy, and personally on each one of us. And we met two very beaten down guys, falling in love with each other, brotherly love, that is. And then I opened up the book to one place, and I asked this question: I wonder what it would sound like if I had my own soundtrack and I went on that journey. And I actually went on that experience, and I came back and I could hear what my experience sounded like in a score or in music context. That way, anytime I listen to that song, I can
transport
transcend
yourself
into my memories. Yep. Exactly. Yes. I can teleport back to this adventure, and because I can remember it and reconnect. And it's great because a lot of things in our life, food and music, but music specifically can re-trigger people with dementia, and remembering their the memories, or having memories come back. And that's one thing that happens, but all of us are connected to music in some way, shape, or form, that reminds us of things that we've lost, or are some of our fondest memories, even sad or anything. But that is part of the human experience, is to to go through all the ranges and the colors of emotions. And I just, it's like, I'm gonna write music with the imagination of going to these places. And so some of these places, started with like 3 or 4 pieces of music where I was imagining what it would be like to go to them. But that wasn't good enough either. And Jonas is like, we need to go. We need to go to these places. What is the closest place we can go to? Well, our backyard is Death Valley, 4 or 5 hours away. Let's go there. And then we found that there's a singing sand dunes. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh my gosh, there's sound in these environments that we can utilize for music.
Just on that, right? Because we're pretty much out of time. But you've got, that basically buttons up this whole circle, right? It's like you've got this connection where you've got this amazing story of hitting rock bottom. Just so happens that someone else is reading a book about how to connect and influence people and make friends, and the universe has put you guys together, and you're both at the same point, and then you've both reimagined a new world, and you've got this connection between storytelling and emotion and music, and man, it's such an amazing story, and I'm just so honored to have connected with you. And one day I get Jonas on, and I look forward to potentially doing something with you guys in the future, because we're just so part of the same tribe.
We look forward to that too.
It's just
that's gonna be we're excited. We're looking forward to that. We're gonna make something happen.
Yeah. So I just thanks so much. I'm going to put some links in the episode of where you can find some episodes. Obviously, you've seen some bits and pieces in this episode, but yeah, keep in contact with Noah, and let's just reconnect with music on an emotional level and a storytelling level, and we'll take it out from here. Thanks, Noah. Have a great day, bud.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, you too.
What's your favorite song?
I don't have a favorite child. This one I call Ti Salamat. So it means welcoming my guests, and then you always talk about how good they look, and take my hand, I welcome you. Ti Salamat.
We brought home a uniquely crafted instrument made from the sacred woods of the rainforest, and we have the honor of playing this instrument and sharing the songs. Maybe we're even playing a small part in keeping the traditions of Borneo alive. This journey has inspired an unquenchable curiosity in me, and I know we haven't even scratched the surface yet. While we may be back in LA now, sharing this story, we know, deep down, this story's not over, and we will be back.